Ya, dan untuk membahas terkait dengan hal ini sudah bersama saya di studio Pandu Sastrowardoyo, CEO dari D-Bio Network. Hello, very good morning to you, Miss Pandu. Glad to have you back here in our studio.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, first question. I think a lot of us here are still not aware of what is blockchain and what does it do. So can you summarize to us a little bit more about blockchain, about what is blockchain, what does it do, how does it work, and what is the future of blockchain?
So one of the things that people like to conflate with blockchain is just the crypto part of blockchain, which is the cryptocurrency part, which of course a lot of us know includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other cryptocurrencies as well. But the thing behind blockchain, the thing behind the technology of blockchain is actually in the decentralization part. We're focusing on how to decentralize business processes, companies, and ownership of companies on top of blockchain platforms. Now, these blockchain platforms do use crypto. These blockchain platforms do use the kinds of tokens that are traded. But the reason the tokens are traded is because this provides utility and co-ownership and governance of the entire system. So the system itself is actually run by its users, the community. So this is actually bringing back control over the blockchain, over the technology, towards the users themselves. Now, when you're actually looking at a blockchain, there's actually a lot of things that you need to study. There's a huge ecosystem out there. A lot of people only understand some parts of blockchain, not all. A lot of people, for example, know that Ethereum is a very good blockchain to create new smart contracts and new distributed applications. But when we're actually talking about creating things at scale, sometimes Ethereum doesn't scale well, and that's caused a lot of issues in the past. So there are other types of blockchains which are heterogeneous multi-chain blockchains. These include Polkadot, these include Kusama, these include the Octopus network as well. And these multi-chain networks, on top of these networks, there are multiple blockchains on top of them with different business logic and different ways of actually doing things. So blockchain is a wide new world. When you're talking about blockchain, it's not just one blockchain. There needs to be agnosticity in terms of actually using which blockchain for which use case. And so when talking about blockchain, first of all, not just crypto, not just Bitcoin, but the crypto part and the Bitcoin part, well, the tokenization part is actually a very key part of it. It's not just to make easy money, no. It actually decentralizes the ownership of a platform. This actually started when you're looking at the complete computing history of the world. Everything starts as decentralized and then centralized and then decentralized and centralized again. The beginnings of computing was just accounting machines. And accounting machines are very, very decentralized. Like everyone has their own accounting machine. They're not networked to each other. Once computing started, we had mainframes. And mainframes are very centralized. It pushes it back to centralization. Then we had the PC era. Everyone had a PC. A PC is very decentralized. It is also not networked at the beginning to each other. And then people started to network them and became a decentralized infrastructure. The basis of the internet is actually decentralized. All the protocols are actually decentralizable. But it became monolithic again. Facebook, Twitter, all of the major entities, including AWS, Google Cloud, and all of these cloud platforms are centralizing the internet again into monolithic. Now, blockchain is actually an answer to that. Because without the blockchain, decentralization has never been tenable, has never been able to fund itself. With the blockchain, the activity of the market and the activity of everyone on the platform actually pushes the platform and supports the platform so that it can continue. So these caused a lot of, this actually gave rise to a lot of products out there. A lot of these products are not just crypto products. A lot of them are actually giving real world value, financial value. One of the things that I'm doing is the D-Bio network, which is a decentralized bio network. I think you guys have you mentioned it earlier. I'm also doing a few things related to the metaverse, which is related to the ownership of virtual lands and virtual items within virtual worlds that is connected and made safe by the blockchain itself.
Okay, so it's a whole lot of different ecosystem, and also I think something new with the doing with the technology and stuff. I think it's most unlikely that people are not aware of the new technology called blockchain.
I think there's that's sort of the thing. A lot of people just, as I said in the beginning, people just conflate crypto with blockchain, and crypto is an important element of it, crypto tokenomics. But the thing is, people are quite dismissive of crypto sometimes. People are just saying that, this is a quick way of making money. It's not. Crypto is a way to fund new technologies. And this is something that we have never had as humanity. Before this, when you want to fund new technologies, you need to fund a company doing it. Now, we can fund a decentralized autonomous organization, which is an organization which is run by its community, decided by its community, governed by its community, based on tokens. And this is a new way of not just making technology. This is a new way of making business. This is a new way of making companies. Companies that are owned by the people. Companies that are owned by the users and maintained. I'd like to tell you something about the evolution of what we call now Web3. Web3 is the decentralized web. We start with Web 1. Web 1 was HTML. The beginnings of Web 1, super, I guess, primitive, but it gave rise to the dot-com boom. And then dot-com boom became the dot-com bust. And then Web 2 came in. And Web 2 is basically originally a way to re-democratize the web, to ensure that the web itself has user input, has user data, that we are creating the content. Example, Google Maps, Google Earth. The contributions of users actually fill those platforms and make them real, make them better.
Okay.
The issue with Web 2 is that humans are reduced to data. And the data part of it is basically creating ways of how to get the most amount of data for free from the users, monetizing the user's data. Web 2 is not community owned. So it's user generated, but not user owned. Web 3 is actually the next evolution, of which blockchain is a key technology. Crypto is a key technology as well, where basically the ownership, the control, and the governance of each platform resides in the hands of the users. This control utilizes the tokens, utilizes all the things that people call cryptocurrencies. They are cryptocurrencies, but they are also tokens to actually decide.
Okay.
So governance has become decentralized, and it is actually a major revolution. It's just that a lot of people are not realizing it because they are dismissive of like, oh, crypto, it's just, it's just crypto. It's just, it's just speculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. Ms. Bondi, you mentioned that now you specialize in metaverse as well. I think this is really unheard of as well for the public. So can you elaborate for us a little bit more about metaverse? How does it work, and what is the future of metaverse?
Okay. Before going to the future of the metaverse, I'd like to talk about the past of the metaverse. And this is something quite interesting as well. Second Life, one of the major metaverses, quite major adoption. That was started a long time ago. It's actually, I think it's back in 2003 that it started. I came in world in 2011, and I started buying land. I started having parties in the metaverse, created museums. This is back in 2011. So a lot of people don't realize it, but the metaverse is actually an old concept. So the actual concept was created in the 1990s by someone called Neil Stephen, 1990s or early 2000s, I forgot. With his book Snow Crash, the word metaverse was created then, but William Gibson, in his book, and like way earlier, created the term cyberspace to refer to the same thing. Now, cyberspace used to be a very wide definition. Metaverse is more, it's smaller. It's a smaller definition. It's a more unique definition that relates to virtual worlds. But when we're talking about the metaverse, it stems out of cyberspace. It stems out of the creation of digital spaces where people meet and socialize. Now, these days, we sort of socialize digitally everywhere. We have Zoom. We even Zoom with our best friends and our families. And we also have, everyone uses chats. But back then, cyberspace was just the only way to digitally connect. Now, the metaverse itself was basically defined as one single metaverse, one single cyberspace, which is based on a virtual world. So virtual reality, augmented reality, everything related to that. Now, we actually have a ton of things in the metaverse that are that is super old, but has been revolutionized by blockchain technology. And that thing is the ownership layer. So when I own this phone, you own that tablet, and all of these ownership, like physically, you know who owns what. Like, this is mine. Like, in the metaverse, it used to be that even if you say you own something, the servers actually own your item. If you own a piece of land in the metaverse of Second Life, the company that runs Second Life actually owns that land. But when we're actually carrying it over to the concept of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, the concept of blockchain, being able to know and write down in a ledger who owns what. That ownership of land and that ownership of items becomes very, very strong.
Okay.
Yeah, so I own land, I own property in the metaverse, I own items in the metaverse, I own clothes in the metaverse, I even own avatars, for example. And these different ownership structures is only made possible because of the blockchain.
Okay. Ms. Pandu, we mentioned a lot about decentralization. So how does metaverse work in decentralization? And is there any protection in metaverse world?
This is a very good question. How does the metaverse work in decentralization? Without decentralization, as I mentioned, the ownership structure will be put in one database and controlled by one company. With decentralization and with the usage of blockchain and NFTs, the ownership structures of a metaverse is actually put in a very decentralized way, spread around. Everyone basically helps take care of everyone else's property. And that decentralization makes it super safe. That decentralization makes it very traceable, auditable even, of like who owned this, who first owned this, who created this item, and who's currently wearing it, for example. So this is actually a boon, a huge, huge effect into the ownership of land. And this is just virtual land, yeah? But like in the future, it also can be used for physical land as well. Land within the metaverse is a space that you can build on. That's it. Now, the space that you can build on is defined not on centralized servers, but the ownership is defined on top of decentralized architecture, which could be on Ethereum, which could be on Polygon, which could be on Substrate, which could be on Octopus, any kind of decentralized structures that take care of the ownership of land. Who minted this land? Who created this land? Who owns this land now? Who owns this land in the past? Everything is very, very clearly shown on the blockchain.
Okay, that's really interesting. But what is exactly the feature of this whole new technology in our country, and also the adaptation and also, of course, the implementation?
So a few days ago, I actually had an event within the metaverse. It's the metaverse, so it's the metaverse of CryptoVoxels. And the CryptoVoxels metaverse, we invited everyone who wanted to come to the Octopus Network launch, mainnet launch. Guess how much came? 8,000 people came for a 1-hour event. So this is bigger than any physical event you can go to at this moment. Okay? So the idea behind the metaverse, especially during the COVID era, especially during the pandemic, post-pandemic era as well, we want to have global relations and global events, right? And Zoom does it, but Zoom sometimes you don't physically interact with people. With the metaverse, you actually have sort of your avatar in there, and you're interacting as your avatar. And when you're interacting as your avatar, that interaction feels real, feels physical. And 8,000 people in one place, it really feels like 8,000 people in one place.
Okay, so the future is still very bright in terms of this whole new technology in our country. Thank you very much for your time with us, Ms. Pandu Sastrowardio, CEO of Dibayo Network. A very good afternoon to you.
Thank you.